Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here and to talk to you about a new superpower for the personalization of creative assets. My name is Raushida, as John said. Oops. I'm the general manager at Celtra. I look after the Asia Pacific region. And today I'm going to take you through some very interesting insights with regards to personalization from both marketer's standpoint as well as consumer standpoint, followed by the personalization creative gap and how this challenge can be solved by evolving to a template-based creative, how data comes into play, and finally by some interesting key takeaways. So let's get started. We did a study in late 2020 with APAC marketeers to understand their challenges and concerns, and also with consumers. And we found out that 92% of marketers say that they are creating personalized content experiences for audiences. And 40% of APAC marketers are actually planning on furthering their investment when it comes to personalization efforts. However, only 5% of APAC brands believe that they're using data to create these relevant experiences for their customers. So that's more on the marketer side. And when you look at the consumer side, 9 out of 10 APAC shoppers say that they are more likely to shop with brands that create relevant experiences or offers in the creatives that they see. Unfortunately, only 44% of consumers find that creative assets from brands are actually relevant to their likes and interest. And this has been validated by Miles Pindis, who's the performance marketing manager at Public Goods, who said that creative is what drives performance, and small variation changes can potentially end up having a huge impact. And similarly, Bradley Rogers also said, who's actually the global CEO of MRM, said that the focus on planning and buying has consumed the performance marketing to the point where the actual creative has been neglected. So all these insights actually tell us that marketers are acknowledging the fact that personalization is a problem, and there is the challenge there and the consumer requirement. However, the whole question is that why is achieving excellence in personalization so hard? So at Celtra, we believe that there are essentially 3 challenges when it comes to personalization. And that's because one is the manual production. The sheer fact that design tools that are meant for building concepts are being used for scaling. Second is the data-only mindsets, where marketers are primarily focused only on the data part of the personalization. And lastly, and most importantly, is how creative is being neglected, where brands are unable to unlock how to deliver personalization visually. So all of this actually leads to the personalization creative gap. And what is this personalization creative gap? So you see that in the industry, there's a lot of demand when it comes to building creatives, which is primarily because of the number of products that need to be launched or introduced to the consumer, the campaigns that need to go live, and these can be a combination of always on and tactical campaigns, which then comprise of audiences. So you want to make sure that you're relevant to your audiences. So you're creating those experiences through different messages, through different creatives. And then these campaigns also need to be activated across all the different channels. And the ideal situation would be that they are activated at the same time. And within these channels, you want to do a whole lot of testing, which basically comprises of languages, different treatments done to the creatives, different types of markets, different products, all of this put together. Now, unfortunately, with such a huge content demand, the production resource handling that is relatively stagnated, or sometimes in certain cases even declining. Now, this is what causes as what we call as the personalization gap. In simple words, it's nothing else but the delta between the amount of personalization done in creatives currently versus what is actually required to be produced. Now, in many instances, like, most brands think that, all right, I have this problem, I want to create more content. And so I think just hiring more resource will solve the problem. It does to an extent, but there are certain other problems that they start encountering. First one is the entire process itself. So the moment you go down the personalization route, the Excel sheet of the content is so extensive that designers have to pick up each line item manually and incorporate it into those creatives. So that entire process itself is very, very laborious. And then the second part of all is the review and approval. When other stakeholders get involved, there are so many different platforms used for communication only for approval purpose. That back and forth across so many different creatives and so many different stakeholders becomes extremely slow and cumbersome. Then when it comes to personalization in certain specific channels, social, for example, there are some templates already that are available, which is great. But when you are trying to create a personalization story, you are resorting to these generic templates, and that actually it's counterproductive, because you end up losing your brand voice, your unique brand voice, because you're using the same template, the same layout. All that differs is the logo and probably the color. And then in certain instances, brand go after, they want to do something more innovative, so they outsource it to different production houses. Now, unfortunately, fortunately, they come up with great ideas, but unfortunately, it's not consistent with the design or the brand guidelines. So there is a potential violation there. So all of this put together actually has some sort of a business impact. It could be either speed to market, either your campaigns are being launched in a very staggered fashion, or then when creatives are not approved and you want to make sure their campaign is launching at the same time, it's super delayed. Slow to market, which could mean missed business opportunities. Then if there's inconsistency of ads, or you're not being able to establish a strong, unique brand voice, you end up compromising on your brand equity. And lastly, teams that are actually helping to do all this personalization in a manual fashion, they're working through the weekends on, it kind of leads to a team burnout, or in extreme cases, it could be a team churn. So either one of these or all of this put together can lead to loss in revenue. Now, this is where we say that personalization is actually a creative production challenge. And why is it? It's simply because art and science has traditionally been separate. And when I say art and science, we are referring to creative teams and media agencies. And the point over here is that marketers need to bring these teams together because they both need each other. Creative teams need the media and insights, and performance team needs creatives for ongoing creative refreshes. So the point over here is that how can we rethink the whole production workflow and transition from a very offline, linear manual production to a real-time in-cloud experience. So when you see the current setup, it's something like this, where you have an in-house or an external creative team that's basically using these legacy softwares to not only build the key concepts, but also use these for scaling into different dimensions, languages, sizes, different channels, etc. And then once they produce all these variants manually, they hand it over to the ops team, who then manually upload it to different paid and owned media channels. This is highly, highly time-taking, as well as very laborious at the same time. However, with creative automation, it can actually empower your design team. You can continue using these design software for building beautiful concepts. So focus on the strategy and the craft, and use the creative automation tool to do all the mundane repetitive tasks. So scaling across different languages, sizes, dimensions, even doing variety for that matter. You can use the platform to not only scale the ads, but through API integrations, you can actually distribute these ads across all the different paid and owned media channels. This essentially leads to a much, much efficient workflow. So let's dig a little deeper into how brands are winning this whole process. So it can be done through evolving template-based creative. And what is template-based creative? Basically, it is separating the design from the content or the personalization variants that you are making. Like I said earlier, that designers are able to focus on the design, the strategy, and the craft. Here's what it would look like. So on the left-hand side, what you see is the templatized, the authoring tool, where the designers are actually creating templates, which are, or the designs that are required for this personalization. See is actually what the content manager or the brand manager would be doing to build these different feeds. And feeds is nothing else but a very sophisticated inbuilt Excel sheet that carries all the different elements of the creative that need to be fed into the templates. Now, through this, what essentially happens is that the layout can be managed by the designer, and the feeds can easily be piped in, where each and every line item is automatically incorporated into the templates to create these different variants or permutations and combinations with the help of a shared toolkit. So it has different types of rules and through which you can manage the copy within the feed editor itself. So in a sense, creative automation enables the on-demand marketing updates needed in today's customer experience economy. The software has 3 workflow pillars. You've got the production, review, and distribution, wherein the creative content production for advertising and beyond may be heavily handled by the designers. However, it is a process that touches the entire workflow and multiple stakeholders across the 3 workflow pillars. So we are talking about massive productivity gains and time saving across all the 3 areas of the entire life cycle. So in a sense, you will see that through a creative automation tool, you are able to achieve that scalable production of your personalization goals. You're also able to retain or achieve higher creative excellence. The speed to market increases dramatically, and while maintaining complete brand control, which is one of the biggest concerns for marketers. So in a sense, when you're talking about creative automation, you're encompassing both the brand equity as well as excellence while enabling personalization. So I'd love to take you through some examples of what template-based scaling would look like. So when we look at content scaling, we can break it into or look at it in 4 different dimensions. First is localization. So very apt in this part of the world where you've got a lot of regional brands or brands that are looking to ensure that they are creating more localized experiences, but don't have the bandwidth to create a lot of, set up a team over there or do creatives ground up for that local market. You can easily use one single template to create these localized experiences across all the different languages. So if you create something in English, either the local market can swap the text out, or the content manager can actually just incorporate the copy in the feed that I showed you earlier to create different experiences across all the different, not experiences, sorry, change in messages across all the different markets. Second is the testing. So ad fatigue is such a big problem for us, and that's why we constantly want to work towards creating personalization stories. And that also includes doing some sort of A/B or multivariate testing where you're able to test whether you want to do it product with model, or you want to just do a gallery of different products, or you want to do like a combination of product and headline and change the headline. Or finally, you just want to swap out the model. All of this can be done through one single template rather than creating these different experiences or treatments individually and ground up. Then the third dimension is you may have just one single concept, but there's so many different channels and sizes. And if you're working with different affiliate partners, you've got a whole lot of specs that constantly keep changing. Now, instead of doing that manually, you just create one single template, and through auto layout, you can create these beautiful ads into all the different sizes in one go. And then lastly, you're talking about specific variants where you want to create variety, but at the same time, you also have different types of variants that need to go in. So the copy may change, the call to action may change, Sometimes the positioning of certain element is changing. All these different variants can be incorporated into one single template. And then through the feed, you can create these different types of permutations and combinations. So these are some of the dimensions that come into, need to be factored in when you're actually building these campaigns. And we see how you can maximize this whole personalization output. We've worked with a few global as well as local brands. And here's a very good example of what was the efficiency or productivity gains that they had. So one B2B to C company, which is a global brand actually, saw that they had a 45x faster time to market, which means the time that was required to produce creatives reduced from 90 hours to 2 hours. And they actually reduced their man hours by 98%. This is specifically talking about adaptations and the time that goes into personalization. We are not referring to the concept that is being built, but rather what happens after the concept is being built. And similarly, a local e-commerce brand in the Asia Pacific region also saw that there was a 4x increase in the creative volume. So instead of just creating one size fits all kind of a generic ad, they were able to do 4 different types. So they increased the variety, and at the same time, they also shortened the entire production cycle. And that happened by 2x. So that just showed that they not just increased the volume, but also shortened the production cycle. And at the same time, it reduced their review effort by 30 times. So essentially, instead of resorting to multiple communication channels, the dialogue happened in one single platform to be able to get those approvals as fast as possible. So Adidas, who's our global partner, actually saw a lot of value in the creative automation tool and said that Celtra let us turn our brand toolkits into flexible creative templates that could be adapted into hundreds of beautiful variants by local markets, saving us time and money per campaign while maintaining quality and enabling personalization. So with that, I would like to take you through some interesting takeaways. What we learned today was, first is personalization is a creative production problem. That mindset of using data only is not going to take you too far, because there will be the production hurdles that you're going to face. So there needs to be a shift in the mindset there. And that's because data also needs beautiful design. And finally, performance marketers and creative teams need to collaborate in a better and an efficient way to be able to succeed. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to take any questions if we have some time left.
Thank you, Raushida. That was excellent. I learned a few good things myself. I've taken a few notes. I love the expression, the personalization gap. I think I want that on a t-shirt myself. And then that art and science are often separated, you know, and that does make a whole lot of sense. The one question I had for you is, where does one actually start? How does one, and where does one actually start to address the personalization gap? What advice do you have for those people in the audience today?
So basically, it's first to identify who are your audiences, what is the treatment you want to create, or the experience that you want to create for these audiences. So everything goes down to creating that storyboard. Once you have that clear, then eventually you go on to the concept, and then the automation tool comes to help you execute that strategy.
Absolutely. You had in your three steps to get going. I love how you said that personalization is a creative production problem. I wonder how many people in creative production realize it's beginning that early on in the cycle, right?
That's right. I think designers would completely agree to it, but somehow they get shorthanded on this. And it's a marketer's job to realize that, yes, bandwidth is a huge issue, and just manually doing this will only take them to that particular extent. So I think there is a lot of acknowledgement on that front, and we are seeing a lot of marketers who are actively engaging in solving this problem for them.
The other comment you made, which I thought was excellent, was that data needs beautiful design. And I can't think of a better phrase that is so eloquent. And it means so much because it's so impactful. Because we all talk about data-driven decision-making and data being such an important part of our world. But it's that part that actually needs a design sort of element to it.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, the consumer is seeing the ad. They want two things. They want the visual appeal and they want it to be relevant. The relevant is done by the relevancy is taken care by the data. But what do you do about the visual? So that's where creative plays a very important role.
Excellent. I think we are good for time. There are no other questions there. So I think we are good. Thank you very much, Raushida.
Right. Thank you very much, John.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.